Before we begin, if you want deeper investigations, full breakdowns, and exclusive true crime cases you won't see on the news, check out our website, crimepulsefiles.com. It's where we dig deeper, ask harder questions, and tell the stories that matter. Now, let's talk about one of the most haunting disappearances in Irish history. It was the afternoon of March 18th, 1977, just one day after St. Patrick's Day. 6-year-old Mary Boyle was visiting her grandparents in Cashellard, a quiet countryside town near Ballyshannon, County Donegal. That day, Mary looked up at her mother and said something innocent, something small that would stay burned in her memory forever. "I forgot to give you a kiss this morning." She gave her that kiss. Then Mary turned and ran off to play. It was the last time her mother ever saw her. Within minutes, Mary vanished. No sound, no cry, no trace. Just gone. And so began Ireland's longest running missing child case, one that still leaves the country asking, what really happened that day? Mary wasn't alone that day. She was playing outside with her twin sister Anne, some cousins, and her uncle, just regular countryside stuff. Mud on the boots, kids running between ditches, calling out to each other across fields. The kind of day you wouldn't think twice about. But sometime around 3:30 in the afternoon, Mary's uncle asked her to come with him to a nearby shed. He needed help carrying a ladder back to the house. She followed him part of the way. At some point, her uncle says she turned around, told him she was heading back on her own. That walk back should have taken her maybe 2 minutes. Just a short path. No cars, no deep forest, no hills, just open land. But Mary never made it home. In the time it takes to make a cup of tea, a child disappeared. She was 6 years old, wearing a lilac cardigan, wellies, and bright red trousers. A face every Irish parent would come to recognize, a name that would haunt the country for decades. No scream, no struggle, no witnesses, only silence, and then panic. The moment Mary's family realized she was missing, everything stopped. They searched the garden, the fields, the ditches, every shed, barn, and tree line. But within an hour, it became clear this wasn't just a child hiding or wandering. Something was wrong. The alarm was raised fast. Neighbors joined in. Dozens became hundreds. Local police were called, then the army, then divers. The bogs were drained. Helicopters scanned the hills. Dogs sniffed through dense undergrowth. It was one of the largest search efforts Ireland had ever seen. They even brought in equipment to drag nearby lakes. But nothing turned up. Not a shoe, not a footprint, not a single thread from the clothes she wore. It was like Mary had been erased from the landscape. And the questions started forming, not just about where Mary had gone, but whether someone had made her disappear on purpose. People began locking their doors. Parents stopped letting their kids out of sight. Donegal was no longer a quiet place. This was turning into a national mystery and the beginning of something much darker. Behind the scenes, while search teams were still combing the fields, Gardaí had already spoken to someone. A man known to the family, known to be in the area that day. He was brought in, questioned, and then let go. No charges, no name released to the public. Nothing. The official line was not enough evidence. But according to Mary's family, especially her twin sister Anne, something else happened. She claims that a phone call was made to police by a high-profile politician, a call asking Gardaí to back off, to drop the investigation into that man, to avoid embarrassment, to protect someone. That's what she believes, and she's not alone. Over the years, retired detectives and locals have come forward, some quietly, some publicly, saying there was pressure. pressure not to pursue certain leads, pressure not to make noise. Officially, there's never been confirmation of political interference. Unofficially, it's one of the most talked about shadows over this case. And the man who was questioned. He was never formally named, never charged, never investigated again. Just gone, just like Mary. Mary had a twin Anne. And while the world moved on, Anne never did. She grew up side by side with a ghost birthdays, holidays, school photos, always imagining what it would have been like if Mary were still there. As adults, Anne and her mother, Anne Boyle SR, began to clash over how the case was being handled. Anne wanted answers. She believed someone in their own community knew something, maybe even someone in the family circle. Her mother believed in staying quiet, in letting the authorities do their work, and that divide split them. What started as shared grief eventually became public disagreement. Anne spoke to the media, called for arrests, accused the police of mishandling the investigation. Her mother, heartbroken and worn down by time, just wanted peace. They loved the same girl, but they no longer stood on the same side of the fight. Mary's photo is iconic in Ireland, now a school portrait of a little girl in a cardigan smiling softly. That photo is over 4 decades old. She would be over 50 years old today. For years, experts released age progression images showing what she might look like, her features older, more defined, but still carrying that spark. But for the people who knew her, Mary is still 6 years old, still in those red trousers, still in that cardigan, still running across a field, forever stuck in that single silent afternoon. Her name became a symbol, a whisper on every St. Patrick's Day, a poster on every lamppost in Donegal, a question every parent silently asks when their child doesn't come home right away. What if it was mine? For a brief time, attention turned to a chilling possibility. Robert Black, a convicted serial predator who operated in the UK and Ireland during the 1970s and 1980s. He was a delivery driver, knew Donegal, had access to back roads, and he had a history of targeting young girls. He was looked at. Investigators considered the timeline, the locations, but in the end, there was no link. No proof he was in Cashelard on March 18th, 1977. No evidence he even knew who Mary Boyle was. Just another theory, another door that opened and quietly closed. As the years passed, the calls for justice only grew louder. Mary's twin sister Anne began pushing for something the family had never been granted: a full public inquest, a legal inquiry into Mary's disappearance, something official, something transparent, but it never came. Why? No clear answer. The Gardaí insisted the investigation was still open technically, but no active leads were being pursued. No arrests were made, and the man who had once been questioned, still free. The family, or at least part of it, wanted accountability, not just from whoever took Mary, but from the system that seemed determined to forget her. To this day, no inquest has ever been held, and every time that fact is brought up, the wound gets deeper. Some cases fade with time. This one didn't. Mary Boyle became a symbol, a name that people in Ireland still whisper with unease. Documentaries were made. Investigative journalists picked it apart. Former detectives went on the record. And still no answers. Every few years, the story returns to the headlines on anniversaries, on days when another child goes missing, on St. Patrick's Day. Because deep down, this country knows this wasn't just a disappearance, this was a failure. A little girl went missing, and somewhere along the way, the truth got buried. Not by time, but by silence. There are no final words here, no resolution, no confession, no discovery in a bog or forest clearing. Just one brutal, unchanging fact. Mary Boyle was 6 years old. She walked away that day, and she never came back. But someone somewhere knows why. Someone has lived for decades with a secret. Maybe it was a moment of weakness. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was something darker. But the truth, it's out there. And until it surfaces, Mary's name will never rest. So if you're watching this and you've heard things over the years, things people were too afraid to repeat, speak, because silence is not innocence.